Tuesday, the 24th of October 2023. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations people who may be with us tonight. The Council also acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site of Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage. We pray for wisdom, courage, empathy and understanding and guidance in the decisions that we make while seeking and respecting the opinions of others. May we in this meeting speak honestly, listen attentively, think clearly and decide wisely for the good governance of the City of Adelaide and the well-being of those we serve. I now ask that all those present stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of the country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you, members. Could you be seated? This evening we have a full complement again. I welcome Councillor Giles back to us. We have no apologies or leave of absence. Could I ask that someone move confirmation of minutes? But before I do so, moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Could I ask before you vote that you make your voting instructions clear? The governance team and I have struggled to work out how people have voted, particularly in the negative. So I'll ask you, if required, to lift your arms again so that we can record the votes accurately. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously, members. Thank you. I ask if anyone has a declaration of a conflict of interest and that they record that on the paper provided and inform us at the start of the meeting if they could. Thank you. We have no deputations this evening and as you note there are no petitions on the meeting timetable agenda, but we did find a petition that was sent in a week or so ago, and I apologise it hasn't found its way onto the agenda. But I understand the administration have distributed it this afternoon. It contained 14 signatories related to Lee Street. I think you should have all had it now, and we will of course table it and put it on the website next week or for the next meeting. Thank you. I now ask if someone would be prepared, because I seek leave of the meeting, to bring 14.2 from the Audit and Risk Committee Chair's report forward, moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. I require a 2/3 majority, and I only ask that it be brought forward from 14.2 because we're lucky to have the Chair with us this evening to address the Council, and it would be appropriate if he spoke just before the Audit and Risk Committee report. So that's moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh and as Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask Mr. Powell to come up to the lectern. This is David's last meeting, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank him for an extraordinary period of service to the City Council, almost 13 years, I understand. As you'd be aware, David has had around 30 years of experience with Big Four accounting firms, brought his experience in running his own consultancy and extraordinary experience in IT audits, risk management, internal audit, corporate governance and external audit. He's served on a range of audit committees and so has had experience in Onkaparinga, Burnside, Unley, Holdfast, Shores and Roxby. His association with the local government sector has been significant, and I think that he's had a significant impact on lifting our performance in the audit area since he's been involved, and I'm extremely grateful for his leadership, expert knowledge and advice throughout the time I've been on council, but in the period before. So I just ask if you'd like to give us some comments, if you could, reflecting on the last meeting perhaps, but also your period with us on council. Thank you.
Happy to do that. Thank you, Lord Mayor. That's very kind words. I wasn't expecting all of that, but certainly have appreciated the opportunity to be able to serve the council in this area. I mean, I was born in Adelaide and grown up here, and this is my home, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to serve the City of Adelaide in this time. As you say, 13 years on the Audit Committee. I think I've been chair for nearly 11, so quite a long time. We've been through a fair bit in that period. No doubt COVID was a serious challenge, and we certainly had a number of years where we were financially challenged as well, and I believe that certainly the last 2 years we're back on track in relation to our financial statements, which we're very pleased about. And we certainly have been working hard alongside of administration to ensure that our financial controls are strong and that our risk management is strong. And certainly acknowledge too the work of the elected members to really embrace the responsibility for the financial aspects of the council as well, and certainly seen a significant improvement in that over the last few years. So I appreciate that as well. I'm happy just to very quickly highlight a few things that came out of our last year so that I can also close out the responsibility around reporting on the last year. There is a paper amongst your papers, I've seen it. I wasn't planning to read all of it, but certainly acknowledging the number of people involved with the Audit Committee. So certainly myself as presiding member, but also 3 independent members in Paula, John and Simon, and then elected members involved as well, obviously the previous Lord Mayor and the current Lord Mayor, and Franz Knoll, Jing Lee and Mary, Henry and Philip were involved with over that period of time. We've covered a lot of key issues over that time as well. We've addressed things like the valuation methodology report, with various business updates, the risk statement. We've reviewed and approved internal audit plans, the external audit itself as well. Obviously the financial statements over the last financial year and the current financial year, which we've just reviewed, which are before you. And the Council's annual report, with one of the areas that we did, I guess, start to drive about 4 years ago was around climate change. And we appreciate the support of the elected members to really push on the importance of climate change as a genuine sort of medium to long-term issue for council. So we've been looking at how council can adapt to climate change issues. Strong focus on cybersecurity, as you'd be all aware that that's a critical area for every organisation, including the council. We've done regular updates around the whole space around risk management as well, and financial reporting. We do look closely at the subsidiaries, so how they are performing, and we often get reports from the various subsidiaries in terms of their financial performance as well as their risk management. And then a very strong internal audit program as well, predominantly done with KPMG, but also some internal resources, and covered off on projects such as record keeping, procurement practices, payroll operations, legislative compliance, payment card compliance, which is an important one, asset inspection, volunteer management, and review of ACMA financial processes. So quite a significant program that we do cover over that period of time, involved with reviewing budgets and the key assumptions in budgets as well. We do consider a few matters in confidence. I'm confident that, or satisfied that that's appropriate use of the provisions of Section 90 and 91 of the Local Government Act when we do keep matters in confidence. And finally, I'd just like to express my appreciation to members of the Audit and Risk Committee for their participation, and also management and staff of the Council and the elected members, of course, for their assistance when provided. So that's really my report. I don't know if up to you on whether you want me to answer any questions or anything, or entirely up to you.
I can open it to the chamber to see if anyone has any questions. No? I think that it's been apparent that you not only send a report in after each meeting, the council's kept fully abreast of what's going on in your committee, so it's been a very good communication, but I must say it's rather a bulky block of papers that we receive, and
we do.
It's a huge amount of work.
It's a lot of work.
I thank you for your diligence. I'm going to ask someone to move noting the report, Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by Councillor Noon, but also but to thank David for his service and wish him well. I've already warned him that we have his contact details, so we know where to find him. So when we have a problem or more issues to deal with, we may ask him again. So thank you.
I can run, but I can't hide, apparently.
Moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh and seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour?
Thank you.
And against? Councillor Davis, did you vote? Yeah. Could I just take that vote again? All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Powell.
I appreciate that. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best, and I won't be going anywhere, so I'll continue to keep an eye on Adelaide as well.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Members, we'll move on now to the actual report from the Audit and Risk Committee. That's item 11. And in fact, there's only one recommendation, which is the audited financial statements and report on financial results. So could I ask someone to move that item? Moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. Is there any debate on that matter? No? If not, all those in favour? And those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Excuse me for a moment. Was there anything I needed to do? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on now to item 12. There are 10 items on the agenda here, and we've modified the meeting format so that even the noted items come up with a recommendation, so that we don't have the complication of trying to resurrect it through an amendment. So I take it that people don't want to take them all en bloc, and if that's easier, go one at a time. I take that as an instruction. So item 1 is the AIDA reviews. Moved by somebody, please. Moved by Councillor Siebentrit, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Is there any debate on that? Deputy Lord Mayor.
Look, I wonder, Lord Mayor, whether the... pardon me, I'm choking here, but I'll be all right.
Please don't.
No, I won't. I wonder whether the administration would be prepared to provide an undertaking that the discussion we had at committee, which would involve a briefing from AIDA on the strategic matters scheduled for introduction in 2024, occurs before there is any change to those strategic matters rather than after.
Sorry, I can't remember the precise details. Do we need an amendment to take effect? Deputy Lord Mayor, I think it would be helpful if you moved an amendment just to clarify your intent.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, I'm happy to do that. It's a minor one. Just after the words at 17th October 23, I just add for implementation from May 2024.
So is that seconded?
I haven't finished. May 2024 for implementation from May 2024 prior to any implementation. And that makes it very clear that we don't want to see, and I'm happy to wait to speak until somebody seconds it.
Seconded by Councillor Snape.
And Lord Mayor, that just makes it very clear that it was the intention of committee that we would have that briefing before the changes occurred rather than after. And I'm particularly interested in suggesting this amendment that to see that, for example, the matters mentioned in the attachment as matters for the board of AIDA and the CEO, such strategic matters as, for example, moving the city experience team, which is responsible, among other things, for the communications about the City of Adelaide, the future of main streets, which is listed as a matter between the AIDA CEO and Council's administration, including moving the SPOCs out of main streets and into AIDA. I'm keen to see that all of those matters are aired here in Council at committee before they are actually acted upon and we are briefed.
So unless there's any comment against that motion, that amendment, Councillor Kouros.
Sorry, just further clarification. I'm just trying to understand what Deputy Lord Mayor is trying to achieve here. I wasn't clear. Sorry, do you mind?
No, I'm happy to explain it. Always happy to explain to Councillor Kouros what I mean. We had a discussion at committee, as Councillor Kouros would remember, where there was concern expressed about the changes that are anticipated through the papers, which she would remember reading. There was a chart provided, and I can provide a reference to that if that would be helpful, which listed a series of actions from 2024, primarily from May, related to revitalising, reorganising main streets, a special point of contacts and precinct groups, and that those decisions were to be decisions taken by the administration in consultation with AIDA. Others included transferring the city experience staff from the City of Adelaide to AIDA, again a decision for the administration in consultation with AIDA. I was proposing that we should, by virtue of that amendment, be afforded the opportunity to hear what AIDA has to say about why it's doing that before it actually occurs. And though the administration said it was happy for us to brief the elected body, there was no undertaking that would occur prior to implementation. I then asked a moment ago, could we have an assurance? And the administration asked, could we please have that as an amendment? And that's exactly where we are.
I think that that's self-explanatory in nature, so unless anyone wishes to speak against the motion, I'll put that amendment. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. That then becomes part of the motion. And now, sorry, Councillor Giles.
Look, I apologise if these issues have been answered, but I just have two questions. I just have two.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that?
I've got two questions arising from this matter.
Yes.
And it's in relation to the attachment that was in the attachment of the Finance and Governance Committee. There's two questions. The first question is that I read that the grant process has been allocated to an external auditor, and I just wanted to know who that external auditor was. And also it refers that the attachment, which this motion refers to, of the Finance and Governance Committee, refers to an AIDA and City of Adelaide administration workshop session, and I don't really understand what that is. Is that another workshop so that Council and AIDA can work through these issues? In particular, this is raised in the area of governance, and I think the governance issues are of particular concern to me, and I just wanted to know is that another workshop where we will be involved in a discussion with AIDA, or is it something else?
I can only respond to the first part of the question. It was KPMG, and the audit, as I understand it, was about the acquittal and the process and the governance of the grants, not about where the money went. And I was of the view that the council had expressed a desire to review grant funding generally as part of the development of the next budget, because we recognise that there may have been some overlap. So that was a different issue, but that will have to come to council. But the second part, I'll ask the CEO to answer.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to confirm that the presiding member's point of clarification is correct. It's an internal audit, and KPMG undertake our internal audit programme. In relation to the second question about the workshop, is this in relation to paragraph 7 of the Finance and Governance Committee report, which talks to a joint workshop to occur before February 2024 between City of Adelaide and AIDA staff to resolve governance, performance and accountability matters? So that was an internal staff workshop. That was the intent of that workshop.
It's just that it was referred to in the implementation plan as being that in the implementation plan of the governance issues, that workshop was going to resolve those issues, and there was a different time frame around that. So I'm a bit confused about what that is. It's in the implementation plan attached to the report at the committee.
I can't quite find it in that implementation plan through the presiding member. What I'll do is take that offline and just make sure that I can answer that question and then share that with all council members following tonight's meeting.
I'm going to sum up. Thank you, Lord Mayor, for the invitation. I just, as Chair of the Finance and Governance Committee, wanted to make a couple of observations around how we continue to have what I consider to be quite constructive discussions around AIDA within that group. I think my general observation is that there's broad support for AIDA across the council members, and I think we should recognise and be communicating back to the team at AIDA that they continue to do a wonderful job in supporting economic development in the city. We clearly have a commitment here to an implementation plan with some short-term operational actions there, but obviously we've still got some discussions to have around the strategic matters, but I think we should recognise the valuable work that team continues to do.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, can I just get an understanding of why we're getting this report and we're essentially just noting the policies? I should just note that I was absent from the committee meeting, so I'm mindful that if some discussion has happened there, I wasn't there to absorb the information.
I actually am not sure why we're getting the report. I can't remember how it arose. I'm sorry.
Thank you, through the chair. It was as a result of a motion from council that we responded, and Mr Sedgman is able to explain why we were proposing a report for noting. Thank you, Mr Sedgman.
Through the Chair, through the CEO, the purpose of the report to the City Finance and Governance Committee was to essentially provide a fulsome update for all council members, noting that the concept of the Future Fund has been in play for over 18 months, and that more recent council members would not have appreciated the interaction between the various policies that operate in relation to the Future Fund. The report to the City Finance and Governance Committee was basically intended to provide a fulsome summary of the Future Fund policy platforms and the associated other policies that also impacted on the operation of the fund.
Thank you. Just confirming that this wasn't in relation to some of the workshops that we had earlier on in the term, and I believe one of the, how do I describe it? One of the, I guess, things that this council was exploring were things that essentially bug some of the elected members. Did this come out of that? Or?
I remember several of the meetings, and I can just try to help by trying to clarify the matters. I was personally concerned that the fund was used to offset debt, and therefore it wasn't sequestered or protected in any way, but it's a budgetary process that we have to understand the clarity, and I think that Mr Sedgman has agreed that it is possible to clarify in the presentation of the accounts in a way that gives us clarity about where this money is, because the dollars are, as they say, fungible and can't be tracked into our main accounts easily for the casual observer. But essentially this is everyone recognising the policy and how it works, and I think being in support of it. It's my fault. All those in favour, up again hands. Thank you. All those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. I'm sorry, we're just trying to make sure we record things accurately. The Parklands event site fees, I think moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Snape. Any debate? Councillor Kouros.
I need to reiterate what I said in committee. I am not voting against this motion, this recommendation, but it saddens me that we have worked hard as a council to apply a discount to very large events, and that we as a council should be really considering the whole community and what they're suffering at the moment, and we should be really reflecting on that, especially small businesses who are bearing the brunt of the introduction of outdoor dining fees, and also the introduction of the blinds and all of that we encourage them to implement in their business during the COVID years, and now they are impacting their businesses, and it's just as a council we should be really reflecting on that.
Councillor, this is about Parklands. I'm sorry, am I a little confused?
I'm just talking about the discount.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, look, I rise to speak in favour of this. This is a product of council listening, and I thank the administration for the work that it's done on this. I remind councillors that events in the City of Adelaide were faced with what they regarded as very substantial increases in their fees. In fact, they are paying to the city sums of money far in excess of, for example, outdoor dining fees. And they proposed to us that there was a difference between short-term events and the fees charged to those and long-term events. Our administration went away and compared the policies of other cities, including Melbourne, and came up with a plan that would reduce fees for occupancy of the parklands other than bump out after 30 days. This has been broadly welcomed by the festival, the Fringe and other organisations, including people like Tasting Australia, who will benefit from this proposal. I remind councillors that the benefits that flow from events in the parklands are not confined to those who conduct the events, but to small business across the city. They bring enormous benefit. And we talked earlier this year about the Fringe generating $76 million worth of activity. The Fringe alone, $76 million worth of activity in the city. Now, Lord Mayor, if helping festivals deliver that kind of outcome for all businesses in the city, then this is a move to be welcomed. And I do ask councillors to support this. It is a genuine attempt by the administration to hear what our event organisers, drivers of our economy in this city, are saying.
Councillor.
Point of clarification, Lord Mayor.
Yes, because you have spoken. I agree.
But point of clarification, I wasn't against the events. I wasn't against the discount. I'm just against it as a council. We're not reflecting on the discount that we have given.
Thank you. I understand that. Thank you for clarification.
I'll keep it very brief, just to echo the Deputy Lord Mayor's comments, and also to commend the council staff for the work on this project. We've had several discussions with the organisers of various events, including the Adelaide Fringe, and it's clear that certain festivals in the arts don't always get as much funding as some counterparts in perhaps sports and other industries. So I personally believe this will be a great help to them and to help what is really quite a grassroots, especially from the artist perspective, grassroots festival, and help keep our city thriving and bring the city to life.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I too do agree with the Deputy Lord Mayor's comments. I think that events do activate the parklands. I know there's been some talk about not necessarily using those two words together, activating and parklands. But I do believe that these sorts of events are key to our economic development here in the city. And I would like to just highlight that sort of approach also needs to be taken with the sporting organisations who take out leases in the parklands, because they do attract a large crowd. A large number of people are essentially forced to come into the city, visit the city, spend their money in the city. So I hope we have the same sort of approach with those sporting grounds when we deal with them.
Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Siebentritt. Is there any debate on that? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. The Council Members' Complaints Policy, item 6. It's moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Kouros. Any debate on that? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Item 7, Council Member Behaviour Support Policy and Council Member Staff Interaction Policy. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Ho.
I was moving an alternative, which the administration has, if I may.
So can I just hold on Councillor Ho seconded, because he hasn't read it, I think. I personally have a little trouble with 2.1 because I don't know what paragraph 2 says. Deputy Lord Mayor, would you like to speak to it and just explain what it's about before we get a seconder? I think that we are required to have looked at these policies by a certain date. So if we decide to adjourn it, it's not. We have reviewed them, so they don't have to be passed. If it's too difficult to identify, we could defer this or adjourn it till the next meeting.
No, Lord Mayor, look, it's fairly straightforward. I spoke to this at committee. That was the previous wording. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sedgman. He's on the ball, isn't he? Look, the changes that were proposed related to 2.1, which proscribed or did not permit communication between elected members and council staff at private occasions, social events, community events and the like. And in respect of 2.1, I made the point that it is a reasonable thing for elected members to communicate with staff at events, and in fact would be unreasonable to not communicate with them. I note the administration's concern was that there might be some behaviour that was potential that might be embarrassing or unsettling, and so what I've proposed is that it is altered to the extent that elected members and council staff can exchange conversation, communication, but they must observe the requirements of the behavioural, unreasonable behaviour elements of the policy, which is at 3.7. I'm sure Mr. Sedgman has that too, and that's a very substantial code. Thank you very much for that, I appreciate that, which then links the two. And so it is then specifically forbidden for members to intentionally direct or seek to direct a council member's staff in the exercise of a power or performance of their duty, in the exercise of the power, the performance of the duty or function of the member in an office or a position he holds in relation to advice provided to council. A council member must not apply improper or undue influence on council staff, including disrespecting the professional opinion, skills or expertise, using rank or position, pressuring council staff to make decisions outside of formal council meetings, pressuring staff to provide information, pressuring staff to make a decision to take action, pressuring council staff to change a recommendation, contacting council staff and approaching council staff or organisations to discuss individual or operational matters. That section, Lord Mayor, also prohibits bullying and harassment, and I know that there is no elected member here who would bully or harass a staff member, but that is specific as well. So all I'm suggesting is it is a reasonable thing for elected members to communicate with staff at social gatherings, community events, but that interaction is governed by that unreasonable behaviour code. In the other instance, at 2.1, it is simply asking that the word appropriate, which is used by the administration to describe the advice it provides, and by the way, the meaning of appropriate is that it is okay for the occasion or fit for the occasion, with the words, and I did ask the CEO, with professional, not precise, and that's an error on the board there. It should be at 2.1, with professional advice. And the CEO was, I think, accurate in suggesting that to me, because the meaning of professional advice is characterised by or conforming to the technical or ethical standards of a profession, exhibiting a courteous, conscientious and generally business-like manner in the workplace. I think that's entirely appropriate as well.
Thank you.
And I commend those changes, minor though they are, to members.
So thank you for explaining that. I shall take that as sufficient to encourage someone to second the motion. Councillor Noon had the nod first. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Noon?
I just want to say that it's a sad day when we have to actually put this in writing, because to me it's just such a no-brainer.
Thank you. Councillor Kouros.
I get what the Deputy Lord Mayor is proposing, and it seems quite reasonable, and it seems like a normal thing to do, to have those normal conversations. But history has suggested that events haven't been or some councillors have not acted very appropriately at some events in the past, and I guess that's what we're drawing
Point of
from.
order, Lord Mayor. I'd like the councillor to explain which events, because it's a broad brush.
I think it will be best if we don't reflect on the past.
Well, I think that's where it's coming from. That's where it's coming from. We did have a cultural investigation which did highlight some issues in regards to relationships between administration and council members. And I'm not saying that this council is the same as
Lord Mayor, point of order. This is absolutely irrelevant. We're talking about the policy in relation to social and community events.
I'm just trying to understand.
Sitting down for a moment, Councillor Couros,
well,
while I make a
There
statement.
was a reason to why that was in there, so I'm just respecting boundaries.
I think this is obviously emotive because we have a code of conduct that some people have felt aggrieved by, and it's probably better not to air our grievances about the past and try and look to the future, because if we keep relitigating past offences, we'll never get on. We have to move forward, and I think that this policy is to prevent troubles in the future. Councillor Couros, please go back to speaking.
Well, Lord Mayor, I disagree with what you've just said, because there's a reason to why this was brought forward by a recommendation from administration.
Sorry, point of order, Lord Mayor. The council has been directed to return to the matter at hand, not debate the ruling.
Can I just be clear about this? This was the new policy that was enacted by the state government, and they gave us a period of time with which we could enact our own policy. I think it's entirely appropriate that we have our own policy that reflects how we wish to operate. And by reiterating these classic sensible measures, it's actually telling the public that we are trying to move forward in a better way. So please, Councillor, don't reflect on other people. But I am reflecting, because these are very important issues, and I really would like to feel that administration is supported in going forward. And I think that we really need to be mindful in the fact that some behaviours cannot be controlled, and we need to set those boundaries. While I commend Deputy Lord Mayor for bringing this forward and being clear that we want to go forward in the right way, I just am very mindful, Lord Mayor, for the future. Thank you, members. I think that we agree on the policy now. Unless there's any further comment, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. And Councillor Couros has voted against and recorded. Thank you. I beg your pardon? A division has been called, I believe. Members,
please stand in favour of item 7. In favour of the motion until your name has been called: Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho, Councillor Lee, Councillor Stephen-Tripp, Councillor Giles, Councillor Snape, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We'll move. That was carried. Thank you. Item 8, which is the committee review, and that is notes the review of the committee structure and how it has operated. So could I ask someone to move that motion? Councillor Couros?
To move it, Lord Mayor, but with an amendment?
You may move an amendment.
Requests administration to provide a report on an alternative structure or other cost-saving methods with a view to reducing. God, am I going too far? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Can you say it again?
Request
slowly?
administration to provide a report on alternative structure and/or, could it be and/or, a cost-saving method with a view to reducing administration costs. Cost-saving method, that's fine. Leave that. Yeah.
Can we have it in red?
So Do I need a seconder for this?
So you're moving an amended motion and it's seconded by Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Oh, okay, thank you. Can I speak to it a little bit? Thank you. Basically, it is clear that this council would like to continue adopting the committee structure, but it appears that it's costing ratepayers money to do so. So very simply, I'm just asking if we're going to continue with this structure, or if there is a report that they can provide us on an alternative structure that can be cost saving to the council. That's very simple that I'm asking, if we can rethink on the way that we do it to be able to not be costly. Could it mean that the Deputy Lord Mayor chairs all the committees because he's already paid extra for that role? I don't know. I'm just opening that up for admin to come forward with that.
Clarification as to whether 3 is possible in view of 1. Can I have some advice about that? Have I misunderstood the purpose? So when would the report be provided? That's not clear to me.
So thank you through the Chair. The report that was presented last week at Finance and Governance Committee noted that we're unable to bring a review back to the Council due to the failure of a rescission motion, but we are undertaking a review of the committee structure and we'll bring that through at the appropriate time, which I think is January next year.
So this would require a rescission, would it, or just is the report acceptable? I'm just need to have clarification. I'm sorry.
Thank you through the Chair. We've already committed, as you'll see in 1, to reviewing the current committee structure. As part of that, I'm sure a report will be prepared. So that work is already underway. I think the bit that we may or may not be considering as part of that, noting that our role is to make sure that the governance structure support the effective governance of the city. We wouldn't necessarily be taking a cost-saving method in terms of good governance.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I understood the administration's report as it came to committee and indeed as it comes to council, and it is that they are preparing a report for us in January 2024, or not before, and that therefore this is superfluous. A second review is not necessary. But look, Lord Mayor, can I just say that it is up to the elected body to determine if it's unhappy with the current committee structure. And the intention of the amendment that's been placed before us is to challenge the effectiveness, the efficacy of our committee system. And I say to members, our committee system has delivered a great deal for this council. As a member of the previous council, I remember that the level of participation that I felt in that council was nowhere near as great as it is here. We traverse all manner of issues at committee, in workshops, and in a way that provides participation fully to everyone. But more particularly, it provides great transparency. The transparency of our actions at committee are such that our ratepayers feel very comfortable with it. Now, I know that there are people such as Councillor Davis who's laughing at that suggestion. He and I know others, a small minority, are of the view that it's not working, and in fact have used media platforms to say that our committee system is a mess. It is not a mess. It is functioning effectively, and I think the problem is that it's functioning very, very effectively. I ask members to contemplate this in January when there is an opportunity to review the process, and if you feel as though it's inappropriate to be doing that right now, that is advocating for an alternative structure, then I would ask you to not support this amendment. The proposal before you from the administration will present to us the outcome of a review of the whole year of the committee structure, and if at that time you feel uncomfortable then you should say so.
I just want to draw to your attention that I thought Councillor Kouros was going to move the motion. She moved only an amendment to the motion, which then would become, she's moved a variation to an alternative, and it's not a direct opposite to the motion, so I had to accept it. But I would comment on the fact that if you vote against this, we will not have one or two either.
Sorry. Can I clarify, Lord Mayor, can we take this in parts?
Votes together, we would have voted against the whole. I'm explaining that if that occurs, we will then go back to 1 and 2 separately.
To take it in parts, Lord Mayor.
That would be easier. But can I just go around the room, and I'll go to the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Snape, Councillor Siebentrit, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Davis. Oh, sorry, Deputy Lord Mayor's already spoken. Unless do you have anything new to add, Councillor? Absolutely. I wasn't asking you.
No, apologies, Lord Mayor. I will take my turn to speak, if that's okay. I don't have much more to add, but I will add a small bit. And that is, I also, along with Deputy Lord Mayor, experienced the previous council and the previous committee structure. And my personal opinion was that it was quite a toothless committee. And the committee structure that we have at the moment is much more, thank you, appreciate your input there, Councillor Davis, is much more effective, and it is much more transparent, as Deputy Lord Mayor has said. I feel like a broken record saying this. What I think most councillors understand about the committee structure is that most of the work is actually done in those committees. And that's an important part of that. So when we come into these meetings, we're not here till midnight, we're not here till 2 o'clock in the morning, because we've done the work. And yes, on a rare occasion, we can, as a body, change our mind. It doesn't happen that often, but it can. And that week of that week of a breathing space, that week of transparency, is what we need, and it's what we see regularly in state governments and other committees and groups like this as well. So this is good governance. It's much better governance than we had previously, and I'd encourage members to keep on supporting the existing committee structure.
Thank you. Councillor Siebentrit, then Councillor Giles will be after Councillor Davis and after Councillor Elliott.
Lord Mayor, I didn't have the privilege of being part of the previous council, so I can only reflect on where we sit here today. And one of the things I know is that good governance is a living thing. It needs regular review. And so I actually thank the councillors who are regularly challenging us on the structure of the governance, because it does need regular review. We need to be challenged. But I think one of the things I observe as we have this conversation continuously is we look at the cost of the committee structure. And I suggest to you all that we need to flip that around and we say, what is the value of good decision-making? I think we've got this completely the wrong way around. And if off the back of discussing the value of good decision-making, we decide to change the committee structure, well, so be it. But I think the cost of the committee structure at the moment is relatively small compared to the value for our community, for our ratepayers, and for what good people of South Australia expect from good decision-making in this chamber. So at this point in time, I won't be supporting part 3, but I do encourage us to continue to have this debate because I think it's an important one.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think it's worth reflecting for a moment on the costs that each time we request a review, it goes out, it consumes council resources, it consumes time. Each time there's a question, it usually says it took 4 to 5 hours to prepare a response, usually on something that could have been answered by going into the e-news, going into the wealth of existing reports that answer those questions, and sometimes actually just by reading the agenda, or in many cases, turning up to committee meetings. So I think it's really, really important that we reflect for a moment that we are asking for a review on the efficacy of our governance systems whilst constantly ignoring the value of the recommendations that come out of those reviews and then saying, we need a review on how to save costs. Well, I can tell you right now, categorically, one of them is to read your bloody papers and stop asking for reviews on things that we already have well-established answers for in our weekly agenda packs, in our committee agendas, and in the wealth, the absolute mountain, the veritable mountain range of reports and reviews and unimplemented recommendations from the previous term of council. Most of this can be addressed by reading your papers, and most of the time we can actually save costs by not committing constant time and effort from within the administration to review our own processes. This amendment is a waste of more resources and is a demonstration of the hypocrisy that drives this political narrative, this pointless point scoring about trying to draw this council into disrepute for someone's Instagram likes. So I won't be supporting the amendment.
Thanks for the debate, everyone. And I really appreciate Mark Siebentritt, being open and welcoming some of the... I did, didn't I? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Siebentritt. Councillor Siebentritt, I really appreciate you being open to hearing some other points of view. I think that's really important that we look at it as we go around. So I think one of the major issues that I have with our current committee structure, and I think that what would support these types of cost-saving measures is there's two different things. Is that the committee chairs are getting paid about, I think it's $750 a meeting to chair it, because they would do about 10. So we've got 4 of those chairs, and the total cost of it, I think, is about $115,000 over the 4 years. So that's the first thing that I think we should address. The second thing is that I actually acknowledge that what things that Councillor Snape was saying about the period of time where we can come back and have a new motion, and there's a lot of the stuff that we're not here until 2 a.m. in the morning. That's great. But what I'd be suggesting, though, is, and I think what the biggest cost really is about staff time and how long they sit in the committees. My biggest issue is that we have 4 different committees. Sometimes the agenda for one is extremely lengthy, and it goes on for a very, very long period of time. We might have 15 agenda items, like Councillor Siebentritt when he chairs, and then the next committee meeting might have 1 or 2, or vice versa. So in some committee meetings, we might have a very short agenda, but then in the next one we have a significant one. And then the other issue is about shuffling that. So for every time we have a report that comes to council or comes to our committee, it's going to require the council staff there. Now, if their agenda item is in the second committee, they need to sit through the entire thing. So let's just say we had 3 council staff that's required for 4 agenda items. That might be, say, 12 council staff members that need to sit there all night. And we might have in the first committee meeting, a workshop or a discussion paper that could be presented by Mr. Sedgman or the CEO. So the difficulty with the committee structure is it doesn't allow us to prioritise receiving reports and making discussions where we can actually let staff go home earlier. And to me, that would be the greatest cost saving to the organisation, and it would reduce the burden on staff. I also do think that we could have one single committee that we could have every 2 weeks, so that we're not, we could set it from 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock every night on every second Tuesday, and that would give the administration the ability to juggle that agenda, and we could still actually divide up those meetings generally or more loosely into the 4 subjects that we currently have. But really, I think we can very easily save $115,000 by not paying committee chairs. I know Councillor Siebentritt is very passionate about it, and other councillors are passionate about the current committee structure, but I would actually just prefer to make use of the Deputy Lord Mayor's 1.5 times loading, and he can chair the committees. And I would like to say one thing, there's a great benefit in the Lord Mayor actually being in the committees and not chairing it, so she can participate as well. So those are the kinds of things that I suggest we change. No need to get too anxious, but I think that we should move this motion. I think that we should at least look at the cost-saving method.
Councillor Giles?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think this number 3 is totally unnecessary, and I think Councillor Davis has just confirmed that point by raising a whole lot of issues that would be covered in a review in number 1, which will take place before 31st of January 2024. If we are serious about doing what we were elected to do, which was to make good decisions based on making sure we read information, consider the issues seriously, take public consultation, and then move in the direction which is in the interests of our residents and ratepayers. Then we need to not consider whether or not we can skimp on doing that properly. So cost saving should not be a consideration in decision making, because council is a council, we're elected, we've been given a job to do, so we need to do it the best way we possibly can. There is also a question about what is the cost of poor decision making. So if we're going to look at cost saving methods in terms of just monetary value, I think what you need to look at is what is the cost of poor decision making, of decision makings that aren't properly considered. So I'd urge everyone not to pass number 3, because that number 1 and 2 does the job adequately.
I just wanted to ask the administration, so point 3 specifically asks for there to look at alternative structures and cost-saving measures, potentially in line with what I was saying. Is Councillor Giles, what Councillor Giles said, that would be covered under the review, the points that I raised? Is that the case, or would it be left out?
I'm not entirely sure I can answer that question.
Thank you through the chair. I've probably heard a couple of things that I think might be helpful input into that January report. One might be about workload balance across each of the committees. So I think that could be of use and help to inform what committee structures could look like. In terms of cost, our council reports currently do show cost of any changes to things, so absolutely we would still consider what the cost of any sort of change would be. That's one of our sort of criteria that we report on the second page of your council committee reports.
I think that we're getting to a closing debate. The seconder hasn't spoken, though. I'll offer him the opportunity. You may have something additional to add.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll skim through my notes to see if I can add something to the debate that hasn't been put out there before. And I would just like to just clarify a couple of things. I think by its nature, the Local Government Act doesn't give those committees any teeth. The committees don't enjoy any decision making, and so really by default they are toothless. They make recommendations, the recommendation comes to this council, and the council chooses to adopt it or change it or what have you. In terms of transparency, I haven't seen a great deal of difference really from the previous term. But I will tell you one of the benefits that this committee structure has brought about is that it's brought about an opportunity for us to test the waters. It's the way we make decisions. Those decisions are made in the public. The media sometimes report on some of those decisions. And I guess once the media publishes a particular article on an issue, most of us, if not all of us, then get feedback from the community. It might be a decision that a committee makes, and the decision may not be all that popular with a particular cohort. I know I myself have I guess utilised those opportunities in the past where the committee has made a recommendation. Certain stakeholders and the community have provided me with their feedback, and I've used that opportunity to bring it into council and to change it. So it does allow this council to change its mind. That is the only benefit that I've seen out of this committee structure so far, but I would be open to exploring what alternative structures would look like, as we have a question on notice that actually highlights the cost that this new committee structure has brought about. Don't necessarily want to debate what good governance costs us. If that's the decision of this council, then so be it. But I will highlight that point that it has given us an opportunity to change our minds if need be.
I understand that we will be reviewing the structure of this committee in January. That's why I only brought in the cost-saving method to be included as part of that. There are a lot of debates or a lot of things that I can say in regards to what Councillor Elliott said, and other councillors regarding efficiencies, decision-making, transparency, time, and it was highlighted that the structure does bring some sort of disjoint in regards to the committee structure being so heavy in one part and then less in the other, and we have staff that are waiting, so that time is not efficient. But that's not what I'm debating, and that's not what I'm saying. I agree that we need to review that. I agree we need to look at the way that we are efficiently running these committee meetings. I don't think they are, but that's another discussion. What I'm highlighting, Lord Mayor, is that if it's such great governance, why have we already spent $36,000 for advice for legal and governance? Why have we already spent that? If it's so good, why have we sought further advice, legal advice on governance issues? $36,000. That's how good it is, our committee structure. Then we've got here, Lord Mayor, that the structure of this revised committee has cost ratepayers, not your pocket, but ratepayers, $48,000 already. Already, that has cost them $48,000. So let alone, and that includes new staff members that we've had to employ because of this new committee structure. So there is really a really hard look that we've got to have a look at ourselves, because it's not good governance. Because if it was good governance, why are we spending $36,000 for legal costs on governance issues?
Thank you. So I'm going to take this in parts. I think that part 1 and 2 can go together. So all those in favour of 1 and 2 together? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Now part 3. I'll put that to the vote again. All those in favour? And those against?
Division,
That's
Lord Mayor.
lost. A division has been called. Now, just a moment. Can we just clarify who's voting for what here?
Members, a division has been called for recommendation.
Excuse me, can you be quiet, because the governance team are going to call out the names and they'll become confused if there's chatter.
Members, a division has been called on recommendation 8 for part 3 only. Please stand in favour of that motion until your name has been called. Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Davis, Councillor Abraham Zadeh. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Item 9 is the draft strategic plan, moved by Councillor Abraham Zadeh, seconded by Councillor Siebentritt. Is there any debate on that? Councillor?
Thank the staff for the wonderful work. I know that in the past we've had we weren't quite ready to send this out, so I know there was a fair bit of toing and froing. So I do really want to thank the team for putting all of this together in a timely manner.
Thank you. I'm sure they'll be very delighted to have so much encouragement. Seconder, want to speak? I think those against, all those in favour? All those against? Is the Councillor Davis, are you voting against? So 1 against. Next item is the annual report, item 10. Could I ask for a mover? Councillor Noon, and seconded Councillor Elliott. Is there any debate or comment against that? If not, do you wish to speak, Councillor Noon? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. The next series of items is related to the Infrastructure and Public Works Committee. Item 13. You'll note that the order of the papers is somewhat idiosyncratic related to how we debated the matter in the committee. Is there any view that we would like to call out any of these, or would we take them on block, or do you... There are no amendments to this?
Lord Mayor, I have an amendment for item 7.3. 7.3, the EV strategy, which I have sent to the mover and to the administration.
Can I suggest we take 7.1 and 7.2 together, if we agree on those two, and we can vote on 1 and 2 together? So could I ask someone to move 1 and 2? Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. If no opposition to that, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously, 1 and 2 together. I'll move on to 7.3, which is the EV transition roadmap. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Happy to move this with the amendment, and I'll seek a second. I'll obviously provide some time before I speak for members to digest it, and happy to explain.
Can we just tidy up the numbers just to make sure? Is that? I'm sorry, can I just clarify we've got the numbers correct here? Seconded by Councillor Snape. Is that okay? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, I was looking away.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, am I free to speak to my amendment?
Please do.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So the amendment is reflective of comments that I made in committee. So clearly there is definite need for this roadmap, and I'm glad that we've seen this progress as a result of Councillor Siebentreut's advocacy. It is a comprehensive report. Again, I noted that at the time it was very, very detailed. However, I was disappointed that despite several mentions of e-bikes and other personal mobility devices, all of which are electric vehicles, there is nothing in this roadmap that supports their further use and adoption in the city. There is a wealth of data that indicates that EVs are a stopgap to the problem of transport-based emissions, considering their embedded and indirect carbon footprints are equivalent to conventional cars in many cases. Their increased weight causes increased strain on road maintenance and will eventually create significant issues for off-street parking facilities which would not be able to support as many vehicles. This will be a similar issue for our high-rise apartment blocks, especially where retrofitting is required. Their increased weight also results in higher likelihood of death for pedestrians and cyclists if hit by electric cars. So consequently, electric cars create numerous issues for our road and asset maintenance regimes, and providing chargers in older buildings not designed to hold quite so many increasingly heavy cars. So I have raised previously the electric vehicle roadmap has tied the transition to parking, and we are yet to fully understand what it will mean to further reshape our city around car infrastructure and the encroachment of charges on public space, especially our footpaths. There is clear need for this roadmap to include the full breadth and scope of electric vehicles, including facilities for electric bikes, electric cargo bikes and small electric commercial delivery vehicles. So while I will support this roadmap, it has been somewhat of a missed opportunity to holistically electrify our transport network rather than just provide electric car parking. Fundamentally, this is a car parking strategy, and perhaps that is entirely consistent with the way that Adelaide has approached infrastructure and our tradition in city planning. However, I indicate my support for this roadmap, and it is a necessary step towards decarbonisation, but it will not be sufficient on its own to affect meaningful transport decarbonisation or create a more resilient city. Therefore, I've proposed this amendment, which will allow us scope to adopt this roadmap, get it moving, and provide space to make inclusions with the support of Council going through the established committee structure, and provide recommendations that would come to Council before the end of this financial year. And I thank the seconder. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Snape did second it. Before I go on, can I just ask if we could type in IPWC in full, because I think it's difficult for members of the public to understand all these acronyms.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was typing on the fly.
Thank you. Councillor Snape.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And look, I just want to take the opportunity to commend Councillor Elliott on this amendment, and indeed Councillor Spentrett for his wider advocacy for EVs. It is quite clear that there is great support within this chamber to move to a more climate resilient future, and I also know that support is in the administration as well. We are moving in the right direction, and this is heartening to see.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I really did want to second this because it's something that I reflected on while I was travelling overseas, and it was very clear to me how much the infrastructure in regards to e-bikes is really progressing there, especially when I was in Germany and in London. So thank you, Councillor Elliott, for bringing this through and highlighting it, and it really is something that we should really be opening our minds up to. So thank you.
Yes, Lord Mayor. Look, I don't wish to speak to it. I support it. But I just wondered if the mover could clarify the words secure storage facilities. Is that for the charging equipment or for the bikes when they're being charged, or generally?
I guess I stand for clarifications. I'm happy to provide a response, Lord Mayor.
Yes, please do.
Yes, effectively, because it includes both of those exclusively and mutually exclusively and together. It's clear that the on-street storage facilities for bicycles are inadequate to accommodate electric cargo bikes, which are generally too small or often up against walls, so they cannot actually be locked to them. The locking mechanisms for cargo bikes and small electric vehicles are inconsistent and non-standard, so they can't always be actually attached to anything at all. And our facilities within UPark especially are inadequate to provide a level of security that people using bikes coming to the city that expect. And I understand that there have been many cases reported to me, at least through my community networks, that their bikes have been stolen from UPark facilities because they are easily accessible from the street and people don't go in and out of the vehicle entrances in the same way they do for pedestrians. So there's the sight on that is very different. So it encompasses both.
No, I think we're in furious agreement. Councillor Siebentritt wants to speak, and then I might put it to the vote.
Councillor Siebentritt, speaking about myself in the third person, will also be in furious agreement, but I'll address Councillor Elliott's amendment as well as the motion in general. Council members, I remember when I had the opportunity to go out door knocking about a year ago and have conversations with people out across the South Ward. And as other councillors who represent the South Ward will know, one of the regular things people said, what are you going to do about real action on climate change? And it's something we hear a lot of general reference to sustainability and climate change, but rarely do we understand what it specifically means. This is an example of one of the tangible things that the local government sector can do, not just here in South Australia, but Australia-wide and across the globe, to help support that move to low-carbon economy and emissions reduction. I think we have an excellent piece of work here. Congratulations to the administration on the work they've done, but also I think we should recognise the consultants who did this work. I think they've done an excellent job. There's a couple of reasons, though, while I think it's good. One of them is that it's based on good evidence and good data. So when you have a look through this is not just full of superlative statements. There's a lot of data backing this up. It also starts to unpack the specific role of council in its as it relates to EV chargers.
Sorry, point of order, Lord Mayor. Photography is not permitted in the chamber.
I'm not sure.
I thought you were recording me, Councillor.
It's a breach of the standing orders to take the photograph.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davis, can you just explain what you're doing with your telephone?
I thought Councillor Siebentritt looked so elegant. I thought that he might want the opportunity to put that on his Facebook page. So if you don't mind, I might send you the photo. But
welcome the feedback.
I don't think this is appropriate. I don't think you should be recording or photographing members of the chamber. Permissions are required to record. I'd remind you of that.
Lord Mayor, if I can, I'll continue back on the focus of the motion here. So I think we have a quality roadmap, not just from the data. We also explore the unique role of council, but also, as the Deputy Lord Mayor raised, it actually brings us to consider some of the questions around how we're going to finance this in the future. The other reason, though, why we need a roadmap is for the very reasons Councillor Elliott has raised, is we need to think about now some of the issues that we're going to have to tackle as we look at the rollout of EVs. And you've made a number of significant points, and I think this is an excellent addition. I also note that there's an opportunity, I believe, through an integrated climate strategy to look at getting some specific numbers around the targets for EV chargers in the city. So again, congratulate administration and consultant on this excellent piece of work, and I look forward to when we can see how we support it in the next round of the budget process.
Before putting it to the vote, I'll take an opportunity, as allowed in the standing orders, to make a comment from the chair. I just want to clarify my comments about the EV chargers on the streets. I'm absolutely supportive of this strategy, but my complaint is that some of those double-height A-frame standard type EV charging points are extremely ugly. And I think, having travelled as Councillor Kouros has, there are plenty of cities around the world that have bollards that are the size of a fire hydrant that you can plug directly in or on light poles. And I think producing light and electrical facilities that are unobtrusive and aesthetic would be important on our streets rather than more clutter. And the double-height A-frame style things are just so large, they're unsightly. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. I said we were in furious agreement. Thank you, members. The last item, part 4, recommendation 4, is capital project update. Councillor Kouros, would you like to move that?
I need to commend administration for providing do I have a seconder? Sorry, am I allowed to talk? Oh,
Deputy Lord Mayor, second.
For providing us the information. I think it's really crucial that we have that communication directly with administration and knowing where all of our programs are at, and I commend them for putting that forward.
Thank you. Unless there's any contrary view, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. And against? Councillor Giles. I'm sorry. I put that to the vote again. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Sorry to keep pressing that point. We're moving on to item 14, which is to assist us by having another appointee, Councillor Snape.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Janet Giles.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Noon. Now, a question from Councillor Kouros.
Why do we already have you, and we already have Councillor Noon?
I know. I apologise for this. I was about to explain. I am naturally the delegate, but Councillor Noon has taken on the role, and she has got a clash between the ACMA board and AGM. I have a problem in that I'm hosting a civic function in the town hall, so neither of us could attend. And I know that Councillor Giles has been involved in LGA activities before. The program is already set, and the voting pattern is predicated on the decisions of council and where they align. There are some important issues about statutory authorities and conflicts, which I think we're all very much interested in, and it is really important that we vote on those matters. And I'm sorry that Councillor Noon, who's had carriage of this argument, is unable to vote. I'm not sure that we debate this, do we? Sorry? Yes, I'm sorry, but Councillor Noon looks despondent because she can't go. So unless there are any other nominations for this, if there are not, I think we can announce that Councillor Giles has been made Deputy Delegate unopposed. Thank you. I'm sorry? Yes, but she will be unopposed. So all those supporting this appointment, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We're moving on to item 15, which is my report. I know there's been substantial public commentary surrounding the decision to lower the Council's Australian Aboriginal flag to half-mast. The proposition to lower the flag reflected both the Council's decision to support the yes vote to the referendum and also to install a plaque with the Uluru Statement in the Town Hall. This was actually followed by a vote in our area with polling booths showing 65% approximately for yes in the square mile and 55% approximately for yes in North Adelaide. As Council's principal spokesperson, I'm of the view that it was appropriate for Council to express empathy for those affected by the result of the referendum, especially in light of our very public support for the proposition of reform and yes. My intention was entirely expressing empathy in this view. Our relationship with our First Nations people doesn't end with the referendum, and a public expression of empathy is little more than expressing that support. The step was taken in consultation with First Nations people, the Chief Executive Officer, and following the receipt of protocol advice. Noting the substantial public commentary in respect of this matter, I'm pleased that the Chief Executive Officer is now updating Council's civic processes and protocols. I note preliminary advice on this has already been obtained, and in that context, I don't intend to comment further on this matter at this time. Thank you. Can I move my report be received? Moved by Councillor Kouros.
I'm happy to move, Lord Mayor, but I thought the vote was 55% for the City of Adelaide.
It was 55%, I understand, over some parts of the seat. The Commonwealth seat is different from the state seat and is different from the voting booths. My comments were about the voting booths. report be received, Councillor Couros, and seconded by Councillor Elliott.
I have a question.
A question?
Yeah, if we might ask. My concern is around the process for the way this happened. Did you direct staff in this regard?
I think it would be appropriate to ask those questions at the end.
Okay, I can do that if you like.
So moved by Councillor Couros, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? Those against? Have you taken votes? Thank you. Councillor Noon, you were voting with it or against it? Against. I'm sorry. Can we take the vote again? I apologise. To note my report, all those in favour? All those against? Thank you, members. It's carried. 16.1. Any other council member activities and reports? Councillor Elliott.
I'm happy to let Councillor Noon go first. I've spoken a couple of times already, Lord Mayor, if that's appropriate.
Councillor Noon.
I just want to say that I had the best gig a councillor could have this term, and that was to actually represent the Lord Mayor in the National Live Music Awards. And it was just an amazing night. And for anyone who's actually interested, the Empty Threats won the best band. And I have to say that it did remind me of what amazing talent we have in this state, and that we should really support the live music scene more. And I just want to give a call out to Jade McDonough, who really was such an amazing assistance to me that night. But it was an amazing night. And the vibe in Adelaide, it just didn't feel like it felt like we were in New York, even though that's not better than Adelaide, I must admit, but it was fantastic.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Very briefly, actually in a similar vein to Councillor Noon's report, I attended a book launch last week. Yeah, you were supposed to be there. You didn't turn up. No, you were quite busy. But it highlighted the vitality and importance of small music venues to our city, especially in the West End, where there's a very different tempo and vibe to the East End, where we have, I guess, a more refined palette of dining experiences and a drinking offering. But I also today attended a UniSA Creative Industries course, Creative Spaces and Places panel, and was very privileged to be asked to help judge the students' projects. And I wanted to mention this today because UniSA students based in the West End through this project placed a particular emphasis on the potential of the West End. They focused on spaces and places at different scales. Some focus on Light Square, which has been a topic of discussion in this chamber. Festivals in the West End, incorporating many businesses at once, creating precincts, certainly with reference to the style of Dark Mofos, street parties, and activations of specific long-standing empty sites. And these projects really highlighted the creativity of our young people in the city, but also highlighted the ways that the West End has been historically neglected and its charms overlooked. It further demonstrated the very possible and exciting activities that council can engage with and take ownership as well, to be involved in and to spread out the festival offering of our city into the West End, to revitalise underused spaces and to radically improve pedestrian priority. So I look forward to hopefully bringing some of those projects into the chamber at some point and finding ways that council can cooperate.
Thank you. I also had the pleasure of attending the opening night of Ausasia Festival, and I didn't realise the extent of the performances that were available, and the performance that was given by a troupe of all men was absolutely incredible, and I encourage you to go along and have a look at some of the other performances. And I also attended the closing of Adelaide Fashion Week at 2KW, which I thought was really good.
Thank you. Before moving, as printed, there's an amendment that I'm not entirely sure about at the moment. Members, I would have thought that for part 2, if there's an error, we could say, notes the summary of council members subject to identified amendments for the sake of accuracy, but I can't quite follow that. He was an apology. Is that the exact wording? can we just... Should we do it?
Sorry, Lord Mayor, is this an administration amendment or has this come from the floor?
I'm just trying to there's been an amendment to the facts. It's a matter of accuracy, but I'm not quite sure how this is being managed. I would have suggested subject to identified amendments for the sake of accuracy, because we can't. Could we just hold on for a couple of seconds here? Is that okay?
Yeah, so
I think...
take out the apology piece. It was emailed Lana, which I wasn't aware of only just now. So
Okay. Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, I'm happy to move that as an amendment, subject to amendments for the sake of accuracy.
Thank you. I'm just working out if someone's moved the substantive motion. No, so if everyone's happy, would you like to move that as the entire motion? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Sorry, got a bit tangled up there. Next item, outdoor dining fees. Now, I have seen an amendment to this
Lord
motion.
Mayor,
Can I just take the motion first?
I just want to let you know that I'm withdrawing the motion. I just feel that the amendment that came through from Councillor Noon would delay it 12 months, and I think this is really important to the public, and I think they need to speak to it, and I think there might be some deputation in regards to it. So I have been getting a lot of calls and a lot of meeting with a lot of small businesses, particularly in regards to this issue. So I am withdrawing it and bringing it back in.
So I'm happy for you to withdraw it, Councillor. That's fine. I would say to Councillor Noon, if she wanted to move a motion at the end of the meeting, she could, because actually it's been on the order paper, hasn't it? But it's not in her name.
Lord Mayor, I've specifically said that I'm bringing the motion back in next council meeting, so you can ask her to move the motion and delay it for 12 months. I see the tactic. I would appreciate if I have the opportunity to be able to bring this next council meeting. Thank you.
And vote against the amendment, Councillor. If not, I'm happy for you to withdraw it. I think
I want to move it as a motion. With
I
my
don't think
amendment.
you can, because she's withdrawn her substantive motion, but we could accept a motion without notice, I presume.
A motion without notice.
So
But when
it's
it
not a
comes-
matter of urgency if we're not doing it till next year, so we'll wait for it to come back on the agenda paper. It's not urgent now, so we'll move on to the next item. So 17.2, can I just remind you that this was the subject of the petition that you have had circulated this afternoon? Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Mayor. Lord Mayor, given that the petition does relate to this, am I able to vary the motion to note the petition or not? The petition is not in this agenda, so I just don't know how. No. No, that's fine.
No?
because it needs to come back. There's a process.
The advice I've been given is that the petition does not formally exist on our documentation because it hasn't been lodged publicly. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's okay. I guess I'll move the motion as printed and seek a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ho. Lord Mayor, I'll be brief, as I think this is fairly straightforward. I've been approached by numerous traders on Lee Street who have had trouble in the way their outdoor dining has been, who've been finding it difficult in order to manage some patrons, and this essentially comes down to the rules that dictate how they set up their outdoor dining. I know that there are lots of different layers to this. I know that we need to take a number of things into account when we provide outdoor dining permits. So I'm seeking a review because I think we are able to find a win-win situation. Hopefully we're able to find a sweet medium where certain traders that do have trouble managing patrons that show antisocial behaviour. That's essentially where this has come from. So I'm hopeful that a review will be able to provide some options going forward. I look forward to the debate, and I look forward to this chamber's support.
Thank you, Councillor.
Lord Mayor, I won't be able to support this. I know this is a bit like the matters that have come up for discussion previously, but if everyone has a look at the administration comment, you can see that Lee Street and the outdoor dining arrangements were reviewed in 2022. And they included the requirements of the very businesses that Councillor Abrahimzadeh is talking about now. So we're having a review of the review about 12 months later. Now, I am suggesting that I'll vote against this, not only because we're asking our staff to go and do the same thing that they did previously, but also because we have an Access and Inclusion Committee, which has made clear repeatedly its concerns about the kind of proposal that's included here. They've told us that they want to keep building lines clear, not cluttered with outdoor dining, as is proposed here from some of the Lee Street traders. And I'm guessing that everybody here knows how important those building lines are. And I'm guessing, though it's well-meaning, that Councillor Abrahimzadeh doesn't understand the Vision Australia policy, which is very clear about it. It says people who are blind or vision impaired use what is known as shorelining to navigate, features such as building lines and walls. Now, that's exactly the circumstance that exists there, and I do understand that there might be some issues controlling crowds, but I think we do need to consider people with disability in the community. It is a very important part of the work we do. And indeed, we ensure that those building lines remain. For example, in North Adelaide, it's common for there to be no outdoor dining. And I can remember being involved in a very lengthy and at times difficult debate about Tint Street Flowers, wanting to put pots and plants against its window. And it is simply that shorelining for vision impaired people is really, really important, even more so at night, let alone the day. So I would just say to members, you're entitled to your perspective, but I do think we need to bear in mind that this has been reviewed in 2022. Our policy is consistent with not only our Access and Inclusion Committee's views, but also Vision Australia's policy. And to change it in this way so quickly is, for me, just not something I can support.
This has really intrigued me in the sense that it's very true what Deputy Lord Mayor is saying. But if you've ever travelled to Europe, the way that they position their outdoor dining is very differently to the way that we are very strict in positioning our outdoor dining here. I mean, I'm sure they've got vision impaired people there as well, utilising their footpath. I'm just wondering if there's an ability to actually review that and be able, or is this? Yeah, so I think this allows that, enables that to broaden and have a look at whether we can be a little bit working with them, with relevant people in regards to positioning the outdoor dining in a way that works for everyone.
So, unless there's a further comment, Councillor Ho, did you reserve the right to speak? Oh,
Sorry. Yes, I feel, once again, apologies, Deputy Lord Mayor, but I feel myself agreeing with you 3 times tonight. I'm very, very sympathetic to the business. Thank you. What was that? Sorry.
Please,
Pathetic. I'm very sympathetic to the concerns of business owners, especially on Lee Street. It is a beautiful street, but I've got to echo those concerns. I've long been an advocate, especially in South Ward, for better footpaths and the like to help people with disabilities, mobility impairments and the like. And I just feel that we can't be going backwards in these public spaces. And again, to reiterate, another review in such a short period of time, we're just going round and round in circles. So, look, I won't be supporting this. I'm happy to hear alternative suggestions that won't kind of create a less pedestrian-friendly atmosphere or a less disability-accessible footpath, but this in the current state, I just don't think I can support it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have a question, noting that in the administration report it does say that there was a review in 2022. Was that review initiated by a standard review process, or was that initiated by a motion of council? And when would the next review already be scheduled for this?
Can I have some information on that?
Thank you, through the chair. From memory, it was an administrative review. I don't think it was initiated through a motion on notice, but I would need to just clarify that.
Thank you. Through the chair and through the CEO, that is correct.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, the second part of the question is when the next review of this would be without this motion.
Can I answer that? Do we know, is there a periodicity, or are they just when appropriate?
Thank you, through the chair. Reviews are usually undertaken at the request of traders and owners. So we will do that level of periodic review for certain places and spaces and streets across the city. In relation to the policy review, I would need to check when that policy is next up for review, which I don't have to hand tonight.
Thank you. I don't think we can get any more information than that. Have you spoken, Councillor Davis, or just interjected? Okay, all right. Please speak.
Yeah, look, this seems entirely reasonable to ask for a bit of a review of the council policies. The work's already been done largely, I think, so the administration could quite easily have a look over what was done before, and perhaps, you know, if there was a way to address any further concerns of the traders, I think that this gives it a very good opportunity. I think council should always review its policies, and it seems pretty straightforward to me. I don't think anyone's going to be very aggrieved over it, so yeah, absolutely, I'll vote for it.
This is a really good example of things that some of the people who are speaking in favour of this motion were complaining about in a previous debate. The papers clearly say that there was a review in 2022. It was initiated by a request from the traders, and the council's access and inclusion plan is really important to us as well. I just think we should take the advice from the administration in relation to this, and not proceed with this if, like, people all the time can just request that council reviews or looks at something, but unless we know the context and unless we know what's happened in the past, we're not making good decisions, and we're just spending money and time and staff time on doing something they only did last year. So the points the Deputy Lord Mayor made were extremely important. And yes, I have recently travelled in Europe, and I would say that European responses to people with disabilities is way below standard in comparison to Australia's. And so maybe we're a shining light in that regard when we're thinking about people who may be blind or people in wheelchairs and their access to those areas for their own transport, to get to the market or to actually just hang out and have a meal as well.
So I'll move to Councillor Abrahimzadeh, but just comment that having noted that the review was only a year ago, it might well be worth us retrieving that documentation. I will certainly do that and read it again, and make sure that it actually did allow disability access for blind people, particularly whether there's any tactile footpath treatments, which I haven't noticed in the city. and is common in some countries around the world. So, anyway, Councillor
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I'm mindful that this, in some ways, is a simple request, and you know, if computer says no, then we can't think outside the box and can't innovate. But I'm also mindful of the fact that there are a number of layers here that need to be taken into account, and I think the latter would be the issue. That's why I asked for a review, because I'm mindful that there are lots of things to take into account. But given the feedback that have come to me from the traders, and these are the traders that have essentially voted for you know, some of the members here in this chamber, these are the traders that expect us to speak on their behalf and advocate for them. The feedback from the traders have essentially been that they are finding it difficult to manage patrons that show antisocial behaviour, and because of the way their outdoor dining is set up and because of our policies, they're finding it hard to control those patrons. That essentially what it that is the main problem. That's what they've asked for us to try and resolve, if possible. Now, we talk about consistency and applying the same approach everywhere. All you have to do, members, is go next door to Peel Street. I know Peel Street is slightly narrower, but go to Peel Street and see the way it's set up there. It's different. It's differently set up there. So if you want to talk about consistency, well, you've got two streets right next to each other that aren't consistent. But if you want to talk about you know, not stepping outside the box and because a policy says no, then we're not able to look at any other measures. Lord Mayor, I just want to make it clear that the traders' gain is nobody else's loss. I want to make that very, very clear, that if we are able to think outside the box and work out some sort of a win-win solution, it is for everyone to gain. So I want to make that extremely clear. Thank you.
Councillor, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Division has been called.
Members, a division has been called on the motion before you. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Lee, Councillor Stephen-Tripp, Councillor Davis and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
And those against are the remaining members. Thank you, members. It was passed. It was carried. I did not. I'm sorry, I said passed. 17.3 is Deputy Lord Mayor's motion on notice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do need a seconder, I'd assume. Thank you.
Can I just ask, Deputy Lord Mayor, if you're moving as printed?
Lord Mayor, that's not exactly as I had thought it would be. Indeed, you and I had a discussion about this, and I thought it was the property asset sale part of the Council Strategic Property Review, not the Strategic Property Review as a whole. So now
that's what I understood. Sorry, yes. I've just noticed it.
Yes, I've just noticed it too. May I amend it to that extent, or would the meeting prefer that the matter be deferred until it can be amended in that way?
I don't think it's direct negative, is it? It's just a refinement of the wording.
It is a refinement, yes. So it is to suspend the property sale actions approved by the previous Council's Strategic Property Review. I am saying the
Sorry?
property sale actions approved by the previous council.
Could we just adjourn for a moment, because this doesn't match my memory of how this was. I think there's a version control that I don't recognise here. Could we just have an adjournment for 5 minutes while we work this out?
Yes, certainly. strategic property review, that is, what to do with the $345 million of property assets that are mentioned by the administration in its response tonight, all of that is confidential. So you'll understand it's very difficult to talk about this. We're just not able to tell our ratepayers what it is that is in that document, except that we can say, as is noted by the administration, we have $345 million of assets, and we say, because of the public announcements the administration has made and by looking at the calculations for the future fund, that we have fewer assets than we had before when we say we've got $345 million in property assets. Now, my concern is that the previous council agreed to sell assets and classes of assets that this council did not agree to, and that for me, and I've mentioned it in confidence, that for me present a problem such that I have raised this. Now, the administration is saying here in the notes, effectively, don't worry about this. We will review it sometime in the future. And they're also saying, and besides, nothing will be sold unless we have the permission of council to sell it. So no sale without approval. But the work, the administration time and the negotiation with people who want to acquire our ratepayer assets is continuing. At least the approval is there for it to continue. We are literally saying, in my view, that if we do not agree to this, if we do not agree to suspend those actions, we're going to keep going. And I think that's not fair to this council. It's not fair to prospective buyers. Now, separately, can I say it's good business for any business, including a council, to be constantly assessing the performance of its assets. But this part of the strategic property view is not a reassessment of how our assets are performing. It is a decision that the previous council took to deal with assets in a particular way. And therefore, if that stays in place, then that policy continues. If you want to take a pause, in this process, then what you do is you say, we would like to hold this pending further consideration by the current council. Otherwise, and I emphasise again, and the administration does in the papers tonight, it will come back to council and request approval for any sale of any asset, but it's business as usual. There's nothing to stop a business, a buyer, approaching the City of Adelaide. Thank you.
With the amended motion, Councillor Noon is happy to second it. She is. And Councillor Kouros.
As one of the only, well, how many councillors were here last term? It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if you were there for this policy. I think you really got to read the administration comments, because I don't want to accuse of Deputy Lord Mayor bending the truth, but it's not as he sees it. It's not what it is. The truth of the matter is that the Strategic Property Action Plan provided in your notes from administration provides a roadmap for the further investigation into council's property assets and does not provide an approval to transact on these properties. It's specifically point of order. I'm reading directly from administration's
Can I just hear the
I'm quoting from administration's comments.
Councillor, I don't want to warn you. Can just sit down while I hear the point of order. The point of order is what, Deputy?
Yeah, the point of order, Lord Mayor. I'm sorry, my colleague thinks it's a waste of time.
Councillor Davis, you're not helping this debate by interjecting.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I made exactly that point. I have made it clear repeatedly.
Councillor Kouros, please.
repeatedly I said that. These matters are still within...
This is not a point of order.
Councillor Davis, please, I'm waiting to hear the point of order. Is this a personal explanation, perhaps?
No, it's not a personal.
Councillor Davis, you are not chairing the meeting. Can you stop interjecting? Deputy Lord Mayor, can you just explain whether you're proceeding to a point of order?
For the purposes of accuracy
That's not a point of order.
and truth.
No, Councillor, I think you're, Deputy Lord Mayor, I think that you're trying to move a point of clarification or a personal explanation, perhaps.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It is indeed that I'm trying to move. I did make it clear during...
You can't do this now. She's in the middle of speaking.
I'm just trying to work out what he was actually saying. So can we stop interjecting?
Well,
Can we just finish what the Deputy Lord Mayor is saying? He actually is trying to, I think, give a personal explanation, not a point of order. So I think, Councillor Davis, I don't need your assistance. You are not chairing the meeting. Deputy Lord Mayor, would you like to wait for a moment to give your personal explanation until after Councillor Couros has finished speaking?
I'm happy to do that, Lord.
Thank you. Councillor Couros.
Thank you. I haven't breached anything, Lord Mayor.
You haven't what, sorry?
I haven't breached anything. There's no point of order required because I'm reading directly. No. I'm reading directly from
Councillor,
the
there's no need to inflame
comments.
it by arguing about
I'm
it.
just telling you that I haven't breached anything. I'm reading directly from administration comments saying any transaction relating to disposal, repurposing or acquisition of the property assets still requires the resolution of council on a case-by-case basis. Very clear. It doesn't say, Lord Mayor, nothing to see here. It doesn't. They're very direct and very, very clear in regards to what the strategic property review means. Now, I know that Councillor Martin has had problems with this, even from last term of council. I understand that he's got the numbers here to kill this policy. I get that. And I get that it's all political. I get all that. But this is a really good policy that allows us to have a look at our assets, review them, and you as a council make this decision. The decision has not already been made for you. It's you as a council that makes this decision. And to turn around and say that the previous term of council have agreed to sell off all the assets, that is such a very, very, very bold statement, because that is not true. Because the policy doesn't allow you to do that. The policy tells you that the council makes a decision based on the information given to you in this policy. Now, of course, properties that are of community value may not be performing well, but they have a value. They have a community value. And as a council, you decide to keep them. You could have car parks that bring community value. They may not give you a return on your money or to what the value they are, but you may choose as a council to keep them. I was interrupted, Lord Mayor, so I think I should have.
Longer, if you would wish. Do we have support for that?
Oh, thank you.
We do indeed.
Thank you. I think it's really important for us to actually, I think it was really described to us explained to us very clearly by administration what this policy does. It's not a fire sale. It's not get rid of the assets. Who wants to get rid of all their assets? What this does is allow you as a council to review the assets that we have and what you want to do with them. It's a policy that stays. It does not say, and I still don't understand why we are discussing this, it does not say that we are selling. It does not identify which ones we will be selling. It does not identify anything other than us reviewing what we need to review. Sorry, CEO? CEO, you said something? Sorry.
No, I was talking to the Lord Mayor, and I'm finding very hard to follow because two council members here.
My apologies, CEO.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to the hearing the two council members. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, you weren't listeing, or?
I'm sorry, I didn't call their attention to the fact that they were disruptive. But
no, it appears that this will be lost, but it's a shame this will be actually voted for, because it's a shame that it is done without the understanding of what the policy actually is for.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Noon, would you like to speak to this? No? I think that Councillor Abrahimzadeh, Councillor Siebentrit.
Lord Mayor, before I speak, can I just ask a couple of questions? Under this policy, how many assets were sold? I'm not sure whether if there's anything in confidence that we should be mindful of, but our administration able to let us know how many assets were sold under this policy?
I believe there was some housing, and we have now, this council has sold a car park.
Bus station.
Bus station rather than a car
Sorry,
park.
Mr McCready, do you want to answer?
Through you, presiding member, thank you, Lord Mayor. From our perspective, we've done the bus station, which is at Grote Street. We've also looked at the beach volleyball site, where there was a sell-off of the land there. And there was naturally the sell-off of land in North Adelaide, 88 O'Connell Street. Outside of that, we've had a number of smaller property sales, which were affordable housing, and one small public convenience, which actually ended up with a major development going on board.
Thank you. And if I can just ask a follow-up, for every single transaction there that happened, was there a council resolution in place?
I think there was obviously a council resolution in place, but I think the matters to which some people have expressed concern were not in the last council term. There were several sales in the previous council's terms, and they were the ones that perhaps people.
Well, that's
were
why the
aggrieved
strategic
about.
property review was created, Lord Mayor. It was created
Thank you,
based on that
Councillor.
information.
Don't interject.
Thank you for the interjection, Councillor Couros. That's essentially what I was going to get at, is that for every single transaction that takes place, the transaction takes place because the council supports it. I think members do need to ensure that they're reading the facts, that they're absolutely clear on what is being proposed. But also, Lord Mayor, if I can maybe put it in this sense, and that is that if now you could be a landlord, you could be a business owner, you could essentially run any sort of business where you have some stock. If that stock is not going to bring you any sort of financial return, it has no value for you, you can't display it in order to get new customers, you can't utilise it in any way, and as Councillor Couros mentioned, there is no community value in that stock at all, why would you retain it? From a mathematical perspective or from an accounting perspective, that's no longer an asset, it's a liability. That's essentially what it is. So one way or another. But members, I do urge you to really understand what you're supporting here.
Lord Mayor, I'm going to speak briefly on this, but it's only to say, can we please, as council members, do our best to be forward-facing? I think we spend a lot of time in this chamber at the moment looking back over past terms of council. I think it's wonderful to see that we have a strategic property action plan. It doesn't particularly bother me that it was voted on by the previous council. All we're doing here is saying, let's pump the brakes for a little moment in time, so we can consider what's appropriate to sell. No one's talking about getting rid of a strategic property action plan. This seems to be entirely appropriate at this point in time. And I think we really need to get to a point as a group of council members where we spend more time talking about the future rather than the past.
Point of clarification, Lord Mayor, the strategic plan does not say it says it's a council decision whether the assets are sold. So it still is a council decision. There is no fire sale.
Point already. Councillor Davis?
Yeah. I don't know what political football we're kicking. My understanding, I don't know what Councillor
Can you
Siebentrit
address
is
the
kicking.
chair, Councillor?
Yeah, Your Worship, I have no idea why we need to do this at all. The reality is that we're not selling any assets. we're not disposing of any existing underperforming assets. At the moment, the policy doesn't do that. We're not pumping any brakes because the car's in park, and then we're all getting worked up about pumping brakes when the car's not moving. I don't know. I'm a new councillor. I don't know why you guys are kicking this across the chamber. This is incredibly confusing. I don't think we should do something that does nothing, which is what this motion does. It does nothing because we don't have an agenda in our strategic property review to go through and sell a whole bunch of assets. So
thank you.
Why even bother to bring this to the chamber?
I think, do you wish to speak against or for the motion, Councillor Giles? For?
Asset sales are really important, and the words underperforming assets are really important in this motion. Community housing, affordable housing generally is underperforming in relation to financial return, but it's incredibly important for the people who live in those houses. It's a really good idea to suspend and think about how we define underperforming, what are we doing here as part of that strategic property review. If everyone's so wedded to how we've done stuff in the past, I think it's a really good idea to stop, have a look at what happened in the past. I'm very unhappy about the sale of affordable housing that happened in the past, and that's you know, it has an impact in just where I live as well. So a lot of the people who were housed are no longer housed in that part, the south part of our city. So, yeah, this gives us a chance to actually suspend the sales, have a think about it, put a brake on it, and put it in the context of the review of the property, the strategic property review, rather than just continuing a policy outside of that review.
You have spoken, Councillor Couros.
The sale of the affordable housing, the small sale of the affordable housing that we did, has that enabled council to be able to increase the affordable portfolio within the City of Adelaide?
I think that's quite a difficult question to quantify. I think if you could just sit down, I'll ask if there's any advice on that. I think it's an impossible question. We'll find out.
Through you, Lord Mayor, in response to that, it is a difficult question to respond to. However, our affordable housing outcomes have been linked with the recent dealings that Council has approved in regards to the outcomes of the bus station, so on and so forth. That's hard to answer. However, I can respond in regards to Whitmore Square. Out of the 20, 13 went to existing tenants in regards to affordable housing sale.
Deputy Lord Mayor, would you like to sum up?
Yes, I would, Lord Mayor. And look, I'd like to make that point of clarification. This discussion is being misinformed by a lot of words that don't address the subject matter at hand. And I'm pleased that the administration has raised this. We kicked out 20 people from affordable housing to sell those properties.
Please.
Look,
what administration said.
I think that
let's be very clear. If we're going to repeat what administration said,
Lord Mayor, can I just ask you to calm down? We know we've sold so many houses,
and tenants,
and we know that some of them bought them, and we know that some of them didn't. But the exact details are not under debate. That's not the substance of this motion. So can we stick to the motion?
Okay, Lord Mayor, I'm happy to do that. Now, look, the words that we've all heard is to the effect that this is not a plan to sell things, and indeed Councillor Couros' words are that this action plan doesn't identify assets which are to be sold. That is not true. It identifies a great many properties which are eligible for sale.
They're all eligible for sale.
No, they're not all eligible for sale.
I think...
Lord Mayor, look,
if he's going to quote me, then I should be allowed to clarify myself.
Mayor, I am getting frustrated with the constant interjections of Councillor Couros.
There's too much interjection.
You interjected me, Deputy Lord Mayor. Sorry, respectfully.
I think it might be appropriate to put the motion. You all know how you're going to vote, and we're just going round in circles, and it's becoming counterproductive. I'm going to put the motion. I apologise if you were just gearing up to another speech, Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour? All those against? A division has been called.
Members, a division has been called in relation to the motion before you. Please stand until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Lee, Councillor Stephen-Tripp, Councillor Giles, Councillor
Councillor
Snape,
Davis, please.
and Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you.
That was carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, 17.4.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This matter I take as read, and I would ask for a seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Snape.
Can I make it clear at the very outset of this discussion that I am not proposing that assets that have been sold are not identified, and I am not proposing that Council shouldn't believe that it has some... Councillor Couros is smiling and I haven't even spoken.
Councillor Couros, please. I don't want to warn you. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm sorry, Lord Mayor.
I'm sorry, who?
I seem to have lost the opportunity to speak. Lord Mayor, I do subscribe to the view that we need to identify those assets. But the term that we use for that, the Future Fund, is entirely confusing. Let me read to you a media report on the 23rd of September that talked about Council's purchase of a car park in Flinders Street. The Council on Thursday said it had bought 218 to 232 Flinders Street, a 293 square metre car park located near the corner of Flinders and Frome Streets. The property previously owned, blah, blah, blah. The Council is paying for the site through its Future Fund, whereby the proceeds of council property sell-offs go towards purchasing new income-generating assets. Now, nothing could be further than the truth.
Well, I'm responsible for that, I'm sure.
I don't blame you at all, Lord Mayor. What actually did happen is that Council entered into an agreement to purchase a property for which it would have to borrow the purchase price. We have no future fund with money in it. There is no $34 million future fund, as was reported in the same media report. And indeed, at committee, only a week ago, there was a discussion at which a councillor said, I have no idea, is there money in the future fund or is there no money in the future fund? Such is the confusion. And the reason is because we use the word fund. Fund, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is an amount of money that has been saved for a particular purpose. There's no money saved, it's a book entry. Now, I note that the administration has proposed, we call it alternatively reserve, and again, the Oxford Dictionary says it's a supply of something, money in this case, that is available to be used in the future when it is needed. It is not a reserve, it is not a fund, there is no money in it, but it is important that we note it. To do so, to do otherwise, is to mislead people. It reminds me very much of the old fairy tale about the emperor has no clothes. The emperor thought he bought an exquisite wardrobe and put it on, but he was naked. And in the same way, our future fund is empty. There is no money in it. Now, we have the opportunity to...
I think that's all very well to snigger, but this is an accounting term which is sometimes difficult to grasp because I keep saying the money is not fungible. You can't identify it in any position.
I thank you, Lord Mayor, and that's particularly my point. I'm just asking that the administration lend some thought to a way in which we can describe that amount of money, because it doesn't exist. It is a bookkeeping entry. It is essentially going into our account. May I just have one moment more, please, Lord Mayor?
Can I ask if the Chamber will support extra time? All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. The simple fact is, our long-term financial plan at this time might show $34 million in there, but if we wish to purchase a car park, our debt goes up. And indeed, if that $34 million of purchases had not been there, our debt would be $44 million with the purchase of a new enterprise. It is confusing, and it would be much easier for us to simply note on our balance sheet asset sales since whenever, and that then identifies the amount, and indeed the Council understands the obligation to find alternative investment projects. That is in fact what our underperforming asset sales was about identifying opportunities to repurchase. However, the money has gone to pay off debt. It is simply a bookkeeping entry that is better described than something other than a fund or a reserve.
Would you let me move an amendment that we just call it the Strategic Investment Reserve? No, it doesn't mean that actually. Can I move an amendment that we call the future that delete all that and just that we rename the future fund Strategic Investment Reserve?
If you have a seconder.
He doesn't have to agree with it. Councillor Noon.
Could you just would you just repeat the word so it can be typed up?
So my motion is that the future fund be renamed Strategic Investment Reserve.
Shall we make that number 2? Should we do that?
Well, we don't need a report then, or advice.
Sorry? Well, it does seem to me that the report is at the bottom of the page, and I would be willing to accept that amendment.
I don't think I have a seconder.
You haven't got a seconder? Okay, I don't accept the amendment. We go back to the motion as printed.
Well, members, I'm sure we'll be doing this again in a couple of weeks' time and labouring over a name. What is in a name? Quite a bit, actually, I think. I think if a rose was called something else, it probably wouldn't smell as sweet. But a reserve, I think, is actually a very good...
I think there's no point you speaking to this because nobody will second you.
No, I'm speaking against the motion.
Against the motion?
Yeah, I rolled straight on. So we've got dinner to get to. I can smell it. My view is that a strategic investment reserve is the appropriate reference to it. So a reserve means assets or money that are held that haven't yet been allocated. That's generally what the interpretation of the word reserve means, as opposed to, I suppose, like a reservoir. We have a reservoir of water. So that's quite common in different accounting principles. I think a reserve highlights quite clearly that we are reserving an amount of money for a particular allocation separate to our borrowing. So it's essentially saying that we have an amount of money that we can spend on that particular objective. Actually, the first line is just wrong. Noting that there are no cash funds, it can never be cash funds. That's actually just flat out wrong because you could have cash funds. So like if we went into surplus next year, obviously the motion's just wrong. So I'm not sure if council can note things that are just wrong, but maybe we can. So my suggestion is vote this down, call it a strategic investment reserve. But otherwise, I guess we can continue to debate this for weeks and weeks and weeks, what we call the rose. Talk about the Emperor's clothes.
I'll ask the Deputy Lord Mayor if he'd like to sum up, because I think... You want to sum up, sorry. Have you spoken to this already? No? Okay, thank you.
I know this is going to go through. I get that the numbers are here in council and that this is going to be a voted, but at the end of the day, no matter what you call it, whether you call it a rose, whether you call it Fuels Fund, whether you call it the Future Fund, whether you call it the reserves, whatever you call it, the policy remains the same. The purpose of it remains the same. And I get, Deputy Lord Mayor, I know you were totally against this last term of council, and you hated last term of council and the...
Personal explanation, Lord
and
Mayor,
you
please.
Hated it's a good policy, Lord Mayor. This is a really good policy. And as long as the policy stays and the purpose of it stays and it's identified as it should be identified. I would leave it amongst the new faction in town that wants to change it to whatever name they want.
I think that we're in furious agreement over this policy, and we're trying to bring dissent into an area that we don't disagree over. So there's no cause. I think it might be appropriate, Deputy Lord Mayor, to sum up so that we can take a vote.
Look, you're absolutely right, Lord Mayor. We're all in agreement. I have...
Councillor...
I have no... Look, Lord Mayor, I just can't get a word in without an interruption. Isn't there a code that prevents that?
Councillor Davis, I will warn you if you keep interrupting.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We are all in furious agreement. I am absolutely certain that we should note the assets that have been sold since 2018, and it should be our goal to make sure that that money is reinvested. That is the money that we've realised from sales, which has gone to pay down debt. But the title is misleading, and we have seen evidence of that. A councillor saying, is there money in it or is there no money? Media reporting that we are purchasing things taking money from the fund, which has no funds. It is an allocation, accounting term, and a simple explanation would suffice. Future fund is misleading. Please allow the administration to come up with something suitable.
I think he's summed up. I'm going to put it to the vote. You can't have a question now. All those in favour? All those against? Division has been called.
Members, a division has been called for the motion before you. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Lee, Councillor Siebentrep, Councillor Giles, Councillor Snape and Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you.
That was carried. Thank you, members. We'll move on to Deputy Lord Mayor again.
Yes, Lord Mayor. Look, I have been given some information this afternoon that would impact the wording of this motion on notice, and therefore I would ask that the matter be withheld, and I will resubmit as a differently worded motion for the next meeting.
The matter is withdrawn. Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. Can we ask if there are any motions without notice?
Without notice? The one earlier. 17.1 with my amendment.
I did say earlier that I didn't think it was a motion without notice because it wasn't urgent. It should be put on the agenda paper for next time. Would you mind doing that, please?
I'm happy to actually do that, but I will actually maintain that my amendment is absolutely correct with this motion, because we should not be doing reviews of something that we introduce only from the 1st of October, and it should be over a whole 12-month period.
Like we did the reviews for the events in the Parklands, Lord Mayor, and with a discount.
Please. I agree with you, Councillor Noon, and if I get a chance to vote, I'll vote in your favour. Any other motions without notice? No? If not, we'll move on to questions on notice, I apologise. There are 3 and they've been responded to, and I'd ask you to note them. Questions without notice? Councillor Davis. Yes. Can I just allow the CEO to comment on the questions on notice?
Thank you, and through the Lord Mayor, I received follow-up inquiries from 2 council members in relation to item 19.1 for further breakdown. We do have some of that information. We needed a couple more days to get more detailed information in relation to item 2, noting that we do have that breakdown. If it's okay through the chair, we'll include that in the minutes.
Councillor Davis, and then Councillor Noon.
Thank you. I had a question regarding the lowering of the Aboriginal flag to half-mast. I actually had a question on notice, but my understanding is that I didn't get that in on time. My question is I would really like an explanation as to exactly what the process was for that decision to have been made and why the administration implemented it, and particularly an explanation as to why the council policy wasn't followed. And I'd also ask why are we now conducting, I heard the CEO mention that this has prompted some kind of review without a council motion, and I'd like to hear and understand why there's now going to be a review over a policy that council hasn't requested a review over.
I responded earlier in my personal explanation when I spoke about how the process occurred, and I explained that the CEO was updating procedures and protocols. I don't know if she'd like to contribute any more to that.
Thank you, and through the Chair. I think it's important to review the process that was undertaken, and that review has commenced. And I also think it's important to update and review civic protocols in relation to the last week's events. And that work has already commenced and will be brought back to Council for consideration in due course.
And the rest of the questions?
I'm sorry, what was the rest of the question?
They were the questions were saying I would like to know what happened behind the scenes and the conversations between the Lord Mayor and the administration staff and why the administration staff didn't follow the existing procedures and protocols that were in place, which were very clear that, and they stated explicitly, that the Aboriginal flag will only be lowered at the request of state or federal governments.
I gave a personal explanation of what had occurred, and I'm not going to change that.
Oh, no worries. I'm not asking you, Lord Mayor. Just through the chair, I would like to ask the administration this question.
Well, I think that the CEO's answered, have you not?
No, she said that she was going to review.
Thank you, through the Chair. I've already engaged external advice in relation to the process that was undertaken. It is within my power and delegation. And I am making sure, however, that the processes and procedures are followed are fit for purpose and current.
Yes. So my question is, so exactly, can we set out exactly what the process? I want to hear the story of what the process was. Who raised it with you? Why did you come to do it? And why didn't you follow? So the council policy around flag protocols, this council as a chamber and the Lord Mayor have directed staff that this is going to be the policy for flying flags, and I wanted to understand why and on what grounds you diverted from that council-accepted policy.
So I think that the policies do require upgrading. They are not as explicit as you imagine. It's within the CEO's power to do that, and I think she should.
That's not my question. I want to understand the story, what happened, why, who said what, who had the idea.
I don't think we can investigate.
I think that's best asked for you, presiding member, on notice, so that there's clarity around what you're actually after, Councillor Davis. So I'd encourage you to put your question on notice for 2 weeks' time, which means it'll be due
I'll
at
leave it
5
here for the sake
5 p.m. next Monday.
I understand. I'll leave it here for the sake of brevity, but I note that, I absolutely feel like the question is you're refusing to answer the question.
I'm sorry if you don't like the answers we're giving you. Councillor Kouros?
In follow-up to that question, did Council look at the flag protocol before actioning your request?
I believe that the protocols were examined and advice was taken.
We have flags and banners operating guideline.
Advice was taken and the protocols were looked at, yes. Councillor Noon?
I just had a point of clarification on the CEO's comment, and I was wondering if it was as per agenda item 19.1, because these figures, as in the reply, sorry, I'm losing my voice, are just numbers and tell me very little. At the end of the day, I need more information about if these figures have been, were allocated in the budget, it was across 2 budgets as well, so a lot of this would have been decisions made at the previous council. There's a lot more information. I think it's dangerous just to put something out there in the public arena that actually says things like $4.4 million was spent on independent external consultants without a whole lot more information that went into that. And this is irresponsible to actually just ask questions like this without actually having more context around it. Thank you.
Councillor Noon, it's better not to call people irresponsible because it was just a question that was answered and one gets the answer that relates to the question. And I think that some numbers can be misleading, I understand that, but I don't think the administration set out to mislead.
I don't think it was the administration's fault at all, by the way.
Just clarifying.
Point of clarification, Lord Mayor, the question was helped with the staff to be formulated for tonight's meeting. So I was guided by administration to formulate the question.
I think we've responded enough on that matter. There's no more to be said. So if there are... Deputy Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, in the interests of speeding up the proceedings, may I invite you to move the exclusion order?
Thank you. I'll move 21, the exclusion order, on the basis that it relates to personal affairs of nominees. So would someone move? Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. I'm sorry? May we do the number 2 exclusion as well? Item 22, the next one. Sorry, we're still in 21. So there's the order to exclude 22. I'm sorry, there was only one exclusion order for both items. Before the bell goes at 8:30. Thank you very much, members.